So, with 3 weeks to the start of the new NFL season, we're privileged to have one of the biggest and best NFL reporters to join the show. A guy that's written for several newspapers, established himself particularly at the Denver Post before working at NFL Network, now the NFL insider for ESPN. The guy needs no introduction. Adam Schefter, welcome to the Irish NFL show, Adam.
Well, I think I actually do need an introduction to Ireland. I don't think they have any idea who I am, nor do they care about who I am. Like, why are you guys even reaching out to an NFL reporter from Ireland? Why? What's the interest there? There's that much interest in the NFL?
I'm telling you, Adam, I'd love to get stats and see how many people have got you on auto tweet or like notifications.
Really?
But yeah, man, because like we've got, well, you can ask one of the main guys in a minute on who has who on auto tweet. But yeah, I probably see your tweets more than I see texts from my wife every day. So look, it's an honor to have you on. Have you ever been to Ireland, Adam? Have you any heritage to Ireland or?
Actually, there was a time in my life before I got married, before I had kids, before I had 5 dogs like I do now, where there was this older gentleman. I was friendly with him and his wife, and he would get together a couples trip every spring after the NFL draft, and they would go golfing. And one year, we came to Ireland in May, and it was outstanding. I loved it. We went to Scotland one year. I loved that. Went to Scotland maybe twice. Went to Ireland another time. My golf game was awful, but I loved your country. I loved being there. And if I still lived in that single world with no family and no dogs, no obligations and responsibilities here, I'd be spending more time in your country than I do.
Well, you have to bring the responsibilities that you have to Ireland to give them the opportunity to soak it up as well, Adam, because it is a special place, as you know. But you are, as Michael said, you're most famous to people over here and everywhere, I suppose, for the TV work. But you have the podcast. You are a podcaster. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And obviously you can't narrow it down to one story, but any some of maybe your funnier moments or standout moments from podcasting.
Well, thank you for the question, Colin. And basically, I started doing the Adam Schefter podcast probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I'll tell you the most interesting thing about it, really. We've kind of tried to figure out what works and what doesn't work. As I'm sure you guys have tried to figure out on your own. And then we had a revelation in April where there was a day during the pandemic where I was scheduled to talk to Najee Harris, the guy that became a first-round pick for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Najee called in on the Zoom line, and he popped up on my computer screen like I'm talking to you guys, like I'm looking at you right now, right? And so I could see all you guys. I could see Brian. I could see Colin. I could see Michael. So Najee and I were able to see each other. It was the first time in 4 years that I had a guest on that I could see him and we could interact. And I can't tell you, it was like, it's so obvious. You'd think I would have thought of it sooner, but it was like seeing the light. And there was a connection there between Najee Harris and I. And ever since then, I've had all my guests on video. Now, we don't use the video, but I'm talking to them on video. And so it's much more, I think it's much more personal. There's a connection there. And I think my podcasts since the Najee Harris episode in April on the Adam Schefter podcast have been much better than they were pre-Najee Harris in April. And oh, by the way, you have to excuse me, guys. I'm in a hotel room here in Bristol, Connecticut, and I haven't eaten all day because the power's out in the hotel, and so they're bringing me up room service here. Oh, thank you so much. I'm on. Just put that stuff inside there. We got some salami and some tacos. How about that, guys? For a combination. I don't know how big that is in Ireland, but
pair of sources on right pair of sources.
The woman, you can just put that over there. It's perfect. Thank you, ma'am. Yep. Thank you very much. You want a coffee? No. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that, guys.
Adam,
so we have lunch here.
Before you get into the lunch, Adam, we'll carry on with the questions. And I suppose leading into training camp, I suppose the Rodgers saga was, I suppose, one of the main key storylines. That's being put to bed now. And I suppose the Sean Watson story still rumbles. The Sean Watson story still rumbles on, and it doesn't look like there's any resolution. Then we had the Carson Wentz injury. I suppose right now, is there any particular storyline within training camp that you're keeping a keen eye on that you think is going to materialize over the next few weeks?
Well, here's the thing about training camp stories, right? Like, you never know what is going to be a big story and what isn't going to be a big story, because there's always injuries that happen. And so that's always the case. For instance, today, the Chicago Bears lost their second-round draft pick, Tevin Jenkins, an offensive tackle. Now, they were counting on that guy to fortify their offensive line. And it's not going to happen now. So that's a big certain way. That's a story. They're going to be just like it'll be a story. But to me, the story of the preseason so far in our country, and am I allowed to chew at a mommy as I do this? Or is that allowed? Is that permissible?
Yes,
absolutely,
sir.
no problem at all.
To me, the story of the preseason is how patient or impatient the teams that drafted quarterbacks in the first round will be. How long will Bill Belichick go before he turns to his first-round pick, Mac Jones? How long will Kyle Shanahan go before he turns to his first-round pick in San Francisco, Trey Lance? How long will Matt Nagy, the Bears coach, go before he turns to Justin Fields, his first-round pick in Chicago? And to me, as we record this on Wednesday afternoon, there may be things that could happen with Deshaun Watson or another player or a trade or whatever it may be. But from a football on-field standpoint, how quickly these teams go to these young rookie quarterbacks, to me, will be the biggest storyline of this preseason.
That's just the thing, Adam, as well. These days, the fans aren't as patient as they used to be in the past. They expect the rookie to be starting, albeit immediately.
Oh, yeah, no, the fans are not patient at all. And sometimes, the longer these teams can wait, the better it is for them, but sometimes they can't wait. And it feels like sometimes these organizations, they listen to the fans. And the more patient they can be, like we saw the Chiefs be very patient with Patrick Mahomes. We saw the Packers be very patient with Aaron Rodgers. We saw the Patriots once be patient with Tom Brady. And so maybe these are poor examples. Maybe they had to be patient, or they could be patient. But quarterbacks that have had time to sit on the bench for a little bit sometimes, that can turn out to be an advantage.
Well, I'll make a random prediction, Adam. I think Trevor Lawrence might start week one. There's a shocker, a revelation, I'm sure.
Mark, you're on it. You are on it right there. I think that prediction is going to be, take that to the bank, bet big dollars on that.
Should be good. Look, Adam, Michael touched on your extensive professional career, but I mean, it started back in your alma mater. You studied at University of Michigan, Northwestern University. Both of them actually have really good Irish quarterbacks. Tom Brady, we're claiming it definitely as Irish. And Northwestern, Otto Graham had some Irish heritage, I believe, and John Paddy O'Driscoll, way back when at the inception of the NFL. So, you, Irish NFL, it was always meant to be. But it does strike me, Adam, look, all of your, education there, the 30 or so years you've been in the media in relation to newspapers, in relation to broadcast, all of these are skills you've honed over time to really bring together some of these amazing breaking stories. I mean, we mentioned about your breaking news on Aaron Rodgers on draft day. That was built up over a number of weeks, and obviously checking with sources and preparing that story very diligently. I'm just curious, in your lengthy career, are there any particular stories that stand out for you in terms of that gestation period on preparing them? Or even are there any infamous examples where the scooper extraordinaire has become the scoopee because someone's jumped in ahead of you?
Well, you think back over 31 years, and there are a lot of ups and a lot of downs. And you always like to think of the next story as being the best one. But what I would say is that, yeah, Mark, there are certain stories that stand out to me just because of the strange circumstances. I was talking with my boss about a week ago, and it was just a little story. Like I had said that James Washington had requested a trade from the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Mike Tomlin came out and said he hasn't requested a trade. Well, yeah, he did. Actually, the agent went to the general manager and he requested a trade. And so, the coach came out and said, he's like, do you want to say something? I'm like, I'm not going to get involved. And he's like, my boss said, "Why are you always in the middle of these things?" And I'm like, I don't know. It's just, it's amazing. I guess maybe it's the nature of the job sometimes, that you're going to report on things that organizations don't want out there. Sometimes you work on them an incredibly long period of time and nothing materializes at all. I could think of certain stories that I worked on that I tried to confirm, pin down, and never were able to get, even though I know they were there. And then I could think of other stories where all of a sudden they just surface that you weren't expecting, like the night where I was at my mother-in-law's surprise 75th birthday dinner in Piermont, New York. She just walked in. We had just sat down to dinner, and I get a text. It was a Saturday night in August. Someone texted me, "Got a moment?" And I'm thinking to myself, man, with the nature of these jobs, you just never stop. I said, I just sat down. I texted back. I just sat down. My mother-in-law's surprise 75th birthday dinner. Is everything okay? And the person said, "Had some information for you." And I said, okay. So I sit to the table, "Excuse me." And I stepped outside to call back this person. And I said, "Everything all right?" He said, "Just want to give you a heads up that Andrew Luck is going to be retiring tomorrow." And I said, "What?" And so, that was about as close as I've come to say, "Hey, I'll call you tomorrow," which I never do. Like, I'm always very quick to respond, much to the chagrin of my wife and family. But that time I did respond, and that turned out to be a story I wasn't expecting that weekend. Right. So that happens. There are all sorts of circumstances that go into there. I like to tell there's a story behind every story. And just like coaches can remember plays from games, I can tell you the details behind certain stories that have and have not materialized through the years.
If I got a text saying Andrew Luck was retiring, I don't know what I would do. And fair play for keeping it quiet for at least a few hours. Adam, 3 weeks. This was Thursday night now. 3 weeks tonight. The NFL season's finally back. Bucks, Cowboys. For you, is there any team at the minute that has just gone under the radar that maybe a lot of people aren't talking about? Or what team do you think, on the other hand, might actually take a big step back this season?
Well, Michael, what I would tell you there is that every year in the NFL, there are teams that are not expected to do well that do well. And there are teams that are expected to do well that don't. And that's one of the reasons I think football is as popular as it is, because it's so unpredictable. Now, we know every year, like, as long as Patrick Mahomes is playing quarterback, the Chiefs are going to be good. They are. And if you have a great quarterback, unless that guy gets injured, your team's going to have some kind of competitive season. Now, whether it's enough for a playoff spot, a division title, a Super Bowl, we don't know. The surprises come, I think, when a team like this year, Jacksonville, I think, will play better than people realize. Now, I don't know that they'll win 10 games, but they'll be better than they were last year. And I think the same is true of Cincinnati, maybe the New York Jets. The worst teams, the league is set up for the worst teams to get better. Sometimes they struggle to do it, but that's how the league is set up. I think Philadelphia will be better than people realize. But to make that big jump into the upper reaches where your team is good enough to play with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers or Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, that's asking a lot for one of these teams that was off the radar last year. The chances are that's not going to happen. Now, you're asking me which teams can turn around. Yeah, that teams can make it competitive and interesting, but there's a lot that has to be done.
Adam, we're a nation of storytellers in Ireland, and you talked about the stories within stories. And so I want to maybe delve a little bit, flip Mark's question a little bit. We talked about the big stories that are of interest to the audience. I'd love to hear about, some of the stories that have been memorable to you, but memorable for different reasons. I mean, I'm thinking of we had Stink on the show with us, and he has that great story about him and Elway and the head-to-head photograph. And it's that he really remembers, rather than say that the final, the actually lifting the Lombardi. So I'm interested for you in terms of hearing some of the stories that have stood out to you over the course of your career, and maybe some of the most fun that you've had.
Well, Colin, first of all, I'm amazed at your guys' knowledge of the NFL. The fact that you know nicknames like Stink, Mark Schlereth, a guy that I covered in Denver as a newspaper reporter, that's unbelievable to me. You just say it so matter-of-factly. much respect to you guys for that. When you say stinking, you bring up John Elway and him laying on him. That's the first thing that popped into my mind was a story from that weekend. And it's just typical of how these things work. So the Broncos were playing the Atlanta Falcons in Miami, Super Bowl 33. That was the game. I was there. I covered that team. And I mean, I remember the hotel where we were staying at. And at 6:30 Sunday morning, that Sunday morning when the Broncos are playing the Falcons, my phone rings and it's Mike Shanahan, the Broncos head coach. And I pick up and I said, hello. And he said, is it true? And I said, is what true? Eugene Robinson, the Falcons safety, was arrested for soliciting a prostitute last night. And I said, it's true. And he said, you sure? I said, it's true, Mike. He's not playing today? No, he's going to play, but it's a problem. So Mike Shanahan was calling me that morning to confirm that it was true, to see if the guy was playing. We talked about it and how it might impact the game. And sure enough, in that game, Rod Smith, the Broncos wide receiver, caught a long touchdown pass where he beat none other than Eugene Robinson on that play. And that was an incredible story. Like, there's a story behind the story. That wasn't really my story, right? But there are a lot of stories with everything, Colin. So there's another story for you. How about that one?
Adam, I said you've got so many stories over the years. We were fortunate to have Tom Panisello on from NFL Network recently, and he said during free agency 1 week he'd only got into bed 10 minutes only to get a text about breaking news, and he spent 3 hours on NFL Network basically half undressed. Is there any particular stories that you recollect in terms of your career, something similar where very unusual circumstances?
Well, it's the life we live. Right, Brian. And what I would say, the one I remember is when I became a dad. I took my daughter out to get gas. She was probably a year old at the time. We could look it up and find that exactly how long. But there was that year, everybody, the Miami Dolphins and the Los Angeles Rams and other teams were all trying to hire Jeff Fisher as their head coach. And it was in January. And I took my daughter out to get gas. I was at the gas station. I get a call. Hey, I want to give you a heads up. The Rams are hiring Jeff Fisher. The Rams? Okay. So I tweeted out as fast as I can. I rush home to go do Sports Center for my home studio at my house in New York. I run inside, like I race into the driveway, jump out of the car, run into the studio, get mic'd up, get onto the Sports Center, deliver the breaking news. The Rams are hiring Jeff Fisher. And my wife pops in. She goes, where's Dylan, our daughter? And I said, oh, shit. I forgot her. She's in the car under freezing cold. I left my daughter in the back seat of the car. I totally forgot her.
I'd say that went down well, Adam.
Oh, yeah. My wife was very happy with me.
It's not the same style, Adam, but I remember having my 6-week-old son fall asleep on me during the Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl. And I'm a Patriots fan. And my wife being most concerned that I didn't wake him up, and how I didn't during that entire game was one of my greatest achievements probably in life.
Congratulations, Mark. That's very well done.
But
you guys are freezing up on me.
Family, NFL, it gets together. We're in preseason. People are being cut. Sorry, Adam, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. Yep, you got me.
Got me? Sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Go for it, Mark. Go for it.
Sorry. So, Adam, we're at the time where dreams are being dashed, frankly. We're in preseason. People are being cut. Obviously, a couple of cuts already going down. I just saw the other day, Don Mulback, the long snapper who'd been with the Detroit Lions for 17 years, has been cut. His guy called out, obviously, by Jason Hanson, a long-time kicker there, but even by the owner, Sheila Ford Hamp, as probably a Detroit Lion great.
Well, you guys know it. You guys know everything.
Yeah. Well, we try to. But, stories like that kind of break your heart a little bit, as well as the young guys getting cut. I'm just wondering, I know you're a journalist and you're objective on all this, but has there ever been anyone that you've secretly been rooting for, or even in this preseason, you're particularly looking out for and wondering, can they make it? Can they get onto that roster at this particular time?
What I would say to that is, back when I covered the Denver Broncos on a day-to-day basis, first for the Rocky Mountain News and then for the Denver Post, and I covered them for almost 16 years. You're with these guys every day. And you get to know them a little bit. and you would be very sad for them and disappointed for them that they didn't make the team. In my current position, I really don't go around to very many training camps. They want me in studio to do NFL shows all the time. So I don't have a lot of personal interaction with the, sixth string linebacker in Detroit trying to make the roster. So when he gets cut, it's unfortunate. I hope it works out for that young man, that he finds another job in the NFL or something post football that can sustain him and his family. But I don't know these men personally that are fighting for these jobs. So it's hard for me to be emotionally wound up in it. I know that on the last cutdown day, that there are 32 teams releasing, 32 players. I mean, it's like 1,600 roster. There are 1,600 young men being fired that day, essentially. That's not nice. And you know what? It's not easy for the coaches and the GMs and the assistant coaches because they're around them for all a training camp, and then they have to say goodbye to them. I always remember, very weird, when I'd be in the Broncos locker room, be 90 guys all summer, 90, 90, 90, 90, 90, and they cut down, and it was to 55. It just felt like, whoa, what happened? The room felt half as big. It just felt more space, a lot less crowded. Like, you could really feel the difference. So I know that every one of these teams feels all these moves that they're about to make here in the next couple of weeks.
Adam, we've got one more round of questions, if that's okay, man. My one wants to center on the time difference. So in Ireland, we're about 5 hours. Well, yeah, we're most of the time we're 5 hours behind Connecticut. I wake up on a Sunday morning. Let's say it's week 1, buzzing. NFL season's back, baby, right? It's about 10 to 10 in the morning, 9:50 a.m., and suddenly Adam Schefter pops on saying that somebody's out for the game. Now, what's a typical day like in the life of Adam Schefter? Do you schedule these tweets because you look like a wizard to people that are seriously trying to sleep? I'm stunned half the time, to be honest with
you. I don't even know how to schedule a tweet, Michael. So I've never done that. That's never happened. I just tweet. I don't sleep much during the season, and there are injury updates that come in, so I put it out when I get it. And that's just the job. Everybody's got a job to do, and they're executing it the way that they do. And my job is to cover information and injuries and moves and comings and goings. And so, you do whatever you can to try to do the best job you can, whether that's, waking you up in Ireland or waking you up in the United States.
Adam, one of the most, I think, insightful books on like the real life of inside the NFL is a book you wrote some time ago with Bill Romanowski, Romo. 4-time Super Bowl champion. And you did, I'm a big Broncos fan. You did a book with TD, you did a book with Mike Shanahan. I'm just interested in, obviously, look, your time commitments being such as they are now between work and your family and dog responsibilities. But if you had enough time, and obviously, like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning would be there, but I'd be interested to know, like, is there somebody you'd love to collaborate with on a book if you had that opportunity in terms of blue sky thinking?
Well, Colin, first of all, I didn't write a book with Bill Romanowski. I wrote 5 books with Bill Romanowski because basically I gave him the first draft, and he's like, "This is too raw, too much in here. We got to take some of this stuff out. Can you redo this? Can you do that?" Okay. And I gave him that version. And he gave it to his wife. And she's like, "Are you crazy? We're not putting this in there. We're not putting that in there. We're not putting that in there." So I rewrote that book. I wrote like 5. And on the last edition, he had this life coach. He's like, "I want Phil Tell, my life coach, to weigh in and write some things." I'm like, "How about it, Bill? Whatever you want." At that point, I was kind of dumb. And I love Romo. But that was insane the way that happened. The way. So I didn't write 1 book for Romo. I wrote 5 books with Romo. That's just kind of the way that went. Terrell Davis, that was my first book. Loved writing with him. Mike Shanahan. Mike is a brilliant guy, and I love Mike, and he's but he didn't have a lot to say. So it took a lot to get him to come up with things to write for that book. And even afterwards, I hear him say some things. I'm like, why didn't you tell me that for the book? You would have made my life a lot easier. If there was somebody today that I would write a book with, I got to be honest with you. Writing books are the male equivalent of giving birth. And it's not something that I would look to or long to do, it's not ideal. So I'm not looking to do one. Maybe one day I will do another book at a different stage of my life about the stories behind the stories. That would be kind of fun. But right now, I got enough on my hands doing the Adam Schefter podcast and all the work for ESPN, and trying to wake up Colin in Ireland with tweets that I'm not scheduling, that I'm doing around the clock.
Adam, we've seen the continued success of the international series, and despite no games last year because of the pandemic, the NFL still seems so committed to growing the game this side of the world, with potential games coming in Germany next year. When going back to 2007, when they first brought the games over, when the Giants played the Dolphins, were you skeptical that it would be a success? And what's your thoughts on the overall evolution of the game since we've moved games to this side of the world?
Well, you got a situation where the league feels like it's maximized revenues in this country. And so it's going to look to do whatever it can to grow the game as much as it can. And what's the one way to do that is to grow it internationally and to look to places that don't have football. And so that's what they're doing. And you guys would know this better than I, the appetite for the NFL over in Ireland or England or Germany or wherever it is, right? It seems like people like it. I have no idea how much they do or don't. I can't gauge that. I know that the NFL can't make enough money. And so whatever the league can do to make more money, they're going to do that. If that means going to Ireland, they're going to go to Ireland. Whatever it is to make more money, they're going to do that. And they're very good at making money.
Adam, I can say thank you, but seriously, man, like to take half an hour from us lads for 3 weeks before the season starting and chatting to us, not just us, but fans across Ireland, across the UK, across Germany, across Europe. It's a massive honor. We honestly encourage everybody to check out the Adam Schefter podcast and just to check out Adam both on Twitter and on ESPN as well, which everybody can really get over here now as well. And it's been a pleasure, Adam. Hopefully we can repay the favor in Los Angeles in February. Who knows?
Well, I appreciate you guys having me. You know what? Maybe we could get like some sort of like thing going in Ireland, and I could do like a speaking gig, and you guys get sponsors, and they over there, right? And we do that. Then we go back to Ireland. I could talk more. You could listen. Like we could have a whole big thing going. So I'll leave that to you to figure out. But in the interim, you guys are incredibly knowledgeable, and I appreciate having me. Very kind of you. I hope you guys have a great season. Enjoy all the NFL action, and thank you very much for paying attention to what I do, to what the NFL is, and to everything happening here in the United States.